Today, I'm gonna speak about pushing dynamic features your users want as quick as they want them. My name is Raul Hernandez Lopez. I work at Twitter as a software engineer. Previously, I was working with the Periscope team in SF, doing some stuff for Periscope and also Twitter. And as you can see here, I was doing this year Google I/O. And you will discover why it was important for me to be this I/O. First of all, I want to say thanks to Skills Matters for inviting me, to you today for being here, and also to my colleagues in SF, also London, and my current team, the events team. First of all, I want to ask you what is dynamic library. Does anyone know what is a dynamic feature? Can you raise your hand? You know? Do you want to tell what is dynamic feature? No? Well, you will discover anyways. Thank you. So doing a parallelism, a dynamic feature is something very similar. That's something we have in video games. When you want to go to the next level and you don't have this already there for you to use, then probably you have a screenshot like this. This is telling you that there is something that should be downloaded at this time, and you probably need Wi-Fi connection to get this at the time. Otherwise, you will be using your data, and probably this is something you don't want to. This is something very new that is nowadays coming to the mobile devices, but we didn't have it until 2 years ago when it was announced in Google I/O. Then I'm going to explain you why, the different reasons we chose to use our dynamic feature on Google Twitter for Android. So first of all, the first use case, the broadcaster. When you are broadcasting something from the Twitter app, you are going to start a broadcast. Then you are showing to the wall something that you are doing at the time. And we are enabling this feature called Go Live Together by clicking this button, which is the smiley faces over there. And then you will be able to invite some viewers in the broadcast to become part of your podcast show. You can have up to 3 guests. And this is one of the main use cases. The other use case is when you are the viewer. When you're the viewer, then you are probably seeing and watching this broadcast from somebody else in any other area of the world, and then you want to also become part of this podcast show. And with this button, then you want to become a guest. So this is the other use case. Why this? Because we need to integrate those services into Twitter for Android coming from Periscope. Then, thinking about Twitter as a whole, we have about 139 million monetized daily active usage, and we don't want to change that. What does mean for us? The thing is, we are only using this for Twitter for Android, and we don't want to affect web, we don't want to affect iOS and any other platforms. Specifically talking about Twitter for Android, our APK is about 27 megs, which is a fair amount, but we don't want to increase the size. This is obviously before we decompress the zip, and then we have the app installed. The thing is, with our WebRTC library, which is the thing that behind the scenes we are using for this podcast show, we have this tool, which is the open source project, and we use this for the real-time communications in behind the scenes. This is actually enable us to use this podcast show for us in Twitter for Android. And basically, this is helping us to use this for optimizing the different communications. If you want to take a look into this library, feel free to get to this URL. I don't want to extend into this, but basically, this is a tool in behind the scenes that we use internally. Then the thing is, the WebRTC library is adding up to 7 megs to this APK I was mentioning earlier. So the thing is, if we have almost 30 megs plus this amount, then we have almost a 20% more in storage to be used. And this is pretty bad. This is something we can allow, particularly for Twitter. The thing is, also, Google advises that for every increase of 3 megs in installation, there is also a percentage of 0.5 installation failure rate. So the more megs you can increase your APK, the more probable that it will fail when the user is going to install it, which is something we want to avoid also. And also, the most important reason for us, we want to go to emerging markets and then being able to provide them those services we have for Twitter. They can use this anywhere in the world. So the thing is, in those emerging markets, for adoption is super important and critical to have as small as possible APK. That's basically it. And also, the devices, the low-end devices, they don't have a lot of storage. So we have to be very aware of that and be careful about it. And for this, we need a reliable solution. We need something we could use, and we were thinking, what do we have right now available for us in Google and also for Android to use? And we were thinking, why not to use on-demand features? It was announced 2 years ago, it was a beta feature, but now it's stable, and we have even more features that we will see today. The thing is also, this will enable us to have different features embedded if we are happy with this. The thing is, we're going to embed this WebRTC library in order to have this for Twitter for Android, and then if we are happy, maybe in the future we could use DMs. If you don't use direct messages that frequently, maybe you can download this on demand at the moment you want to need it. And then, thinking in how we made it, I will explain you the steps we follow and our path to go to this. First of all, you need to modularize your app if you don't have this already done. This is crucial, because if you don't have this modularized, you cannot have dynamic features. Modularizing means designing separate sections. Those should be decoupled from one another. And this means that every single module is going to be independent from each other. That means we have the base app, in this case the Twitter for Android app. We could have one feature on the top of it, which is independent to the base app, or we can have 2 or even more. Those are going to be isolated from each other. Also, this will enable us to reuse the code very easily, because if we have this code there, maybe you have different apps, and you want to share this code across the different apps. That means that you have this module, maybe you can use it with Periscope, you can use it with Twitter, and maybe other apps in the future. Or maybe you have code-dependent modules from each other. Also, very important for us at Twitter, we are about 50 mobile engineers for Android, and we work at scale. We have different offices in SF, New York, London, Singapore now, and many others. So it's crucial for us to work at scale and in parallel. That means that, if, for instance, we are doing something in our feature module, we don't want to affect any other teams. That means that if I am changing this module, I don't want this person to have some merge conflicts because I am changing some tiny bit that is totally independent to this another module. So this is crucial for us. So modularization is clue. Also, build time reduction. If you don't know this already, probably you do, it's very important to have small modules to have build times reduction. Why this is happening? Because imagine the old times when we were having a monolith app with everything in the same repo and we don't have different modules. If we are changing some tiny bit because you are changing some utils, let's say, the thing is you're going to compile the whole app. And this will increase dramatically the time for this, because the code can be huge. However, if you have a very tiny module with something that you can change for a particular feature, this will only affect this module. That means that you will only compile this module, but not the other areas. This is not happening that frequently in Twitter, because we have like many different modules, and all probably are being changed because different feature teams, but can be possible. And also, super important for having dynamic features, Android unbundle. This is actually the only way of having a dynamic feature. An Android app bundle is a love system having the compiled code and resources ready for the Google Play to compile and also sign this into your mobile device. And then talking about the structure we have at Twitter. This is just an example, but you can see that we have app Twitter, which is the base app, and this is also having some code dependencies from the WebRTC library. And also, this is connected to the features library, and this is also connected with the Periscope library. That means that we have different applications, and we want to use them across different apps. The thing is, for Periscope, it's not really a problem for us. We can afford to have WebRTC embedded into the app. The thing is, we don't want to have this for Twitter, because we have other markets, and we want to be aware of that. So the only solution we have for this is basically excluding the native library for WebRTC in order to not have this all the time. As we are excluding this, we need to have this at some point, right? So that's why we chose to have dynamic features, because then we can add it on demand. At the point that user is going to need this feature, then can download it and then using it at this precise moment. So, recapping, we need to have this split module, which is going to be a dynamic feature module and should be separated from the other areas of the app. Then I'm going to explain you the different steps that we had to understand and also making this happening. First of all, we have to be aware about what is doing the Google Play Store. Basically, Play Store is like a gateway. It's enabling us to have this at the time the user needs it. It's the main responsible for receiving the requests from the user when he's using those particular use case scenarios, like the broadcaster and the viewer becoming a guest. And then at the time, then it's saying like, hey, I need this, so please immediate. And also for this, coming from this point, we have two different combinations. First of all, you have under Lollipop, then you have, let's say, KitKat or any other under version. Then you will have multi-APKs. Multi-APKs is something that probably you don't want to have. Why? Because it will have the different combinations of densities, architectures, and different compile modules for you directly into the app, into the base app altogether. That means you don't have a decrease on size. You won't have on-demand features. You will have all at the time you are installing this in the mobile device. However, if you use Lollipop in advance, then you will have the right set of assets and also architecture you need for your mobile device and densities and this compiled code ready to use for your mobile device. Why this is happening? Because Android App Bundles is only enabled from Lollipop in advance. That's why. So you have those two sets. You can enable both to have there in the case you don't have all Lollipop in advance, and then you will be ready for those two to be installed. Then, of course, we would like to have everything perfect and ready to use, but of course, we have to be aware about the different issues and problems we could have along the way. So as we are requesting things and we are downloading things, we have to be aware that obviously the network is a critical thing. If we don't have any network, we cannot download it, so we don't have any interaction with the final user. Maybe we have some permissions we have to take care about as well. And of course, when we are downloading this and we have this ready, we have to install and then load in some UX ready for the user to use. And then the happy path. We have to check that the progression of the download is going well or is going bad, and then react to those different situations. And when it's completed, then we will install this and load the specific user experience for the user. Then we have two different situations. We could choose to install at the time you need it, as we are doing right now, on demand, or we could do it by deferring the installation where more convenient for you is. What this means, imagine you are in Twitter for Android right now, and you are navigating through the home timeline. You are reading different news, you are being aware about what is happening with Brexit, with Trump talking today, and then you are not using this feature, but maybe you can have it because you have the right conditions. You are plugged to the electricity, then you have the power. Then you are having Wi-Fi, so you don't consume the data. And you have enough storage. So you could, at this point, use it. Why not? This is something we don't do, but it's something we think about. Then, speaking about the design principles we use at Twitter, we use something called Activity Tracker. Activity Tracker, don't be scared, is something very similar to what you have in architecture components for lifecycle. It's basically the same. We basically check what is going on in the screens, if the screen is on pause or is resumed, and then passing those states to the installation manager. This installation manager is making us this generic implementation ready to pass this to the library, which is a play call library, using the split install manager, and then when it's resumed, we register, then we are ready to use the installation for the play call library. On where it's paused, we don't need to use it, so we unregister because we have to avoid memory leaks, and we have to be aware of the different constraints. Then, obviously, we have to go to the specific implementation and use cases. So we very strongly use RxJava. That means that we could subscribe to the different events that are going on, and we could observe and then passing this back. Speaking about this implementation and the specific extension of it, what basically we do is something quite simple. We use a loader, which is requesting something or loading something when the user is tapping those buttons that I was explaining earlier. And then we pass back those different events, and we install or have some interaction with the user. With those two situations, we made ready some generic implementation which will be enable us to have something in the top of it, and also the specific one for the particular use cases we are having right now. And of course, we are checking if the download is not in progress yet, or maybe it's in progress, or downloaded already, or completed. Then we could load something and use something else. And of course, we have to check the progress. If it started, if it's already done, and we can complete the user interaction for the final user. This actually enabled us to use this in different teams and also different dynamic features. We don't have any more at the moment, but we have this ready because we have the infrastructure ready because the generic implementation for have something in the top of it. Then, talking about the implementation. Of course, we chose to use everything with calling from the very beginning. And with this, we could have advantage of data classes, or shield classes, or nested shield classes, smart casting with those shield classes, or even use objects if we need them. Speaking about the different configurations, if we think about the base app, we need to point out to the dynamic feature module that you have this WebRTC library. And also, in the other side, we need to put that this is specifically a dynamic feature. Also remember that it's super important to have, and probably in the documentation it's not very explicitly mentioned, the different flavors. If you don't put the different flavors into this dynamic feature, it will probably not work. So take this into account if you are building something like this. And also, for the Android manifest, we need to indicate with this dist module that we have an on-demand feature. So this should be true in the flag. As we don't have an Insta app, we don't need to put this to true. So this is false. We don't need it. And also, we want to support KitKat. And below, then we have to put the option of fusing to true. That is important. We want to support it. And that's basically all for the configuration and the different modules. Then I'm going to explain you now the simple API we created for this. We, first of all, check if the installation of the module is there, and also we install it by the module name. Then, as we are using a native library, we need to load it, because the .so file needs to be loaded. And then we are also designing this for the generic implementation. That means that we have to register and unregister and check if it's registered already, because we don't want to do it twice. And then we have with this the generic implementation done. And probably the most important bit for us, the bridge between different things. You could use, obviously, other techniques. We could use coroutines or anything else. For us, it's important to have streams, because we use this very strongly, as I was mentioning. And with this, we are passing the different events across the app and then reacting to the different situations. Now, I will explain you the different implementation details about this simple API. Speaking about the install dynamic module, we simply pass the module name. And with the module name, then we use the split install request. This is basically a tool provided by the Playcore library, which is allowing you to have different modules. In this particular case, as you can see, we only have one line with add module, but we will have 1, 2, 3, or more. And this will be ready to have different modules for different screens. And then we simply pass this to the manager, and then we install this on demand or at the time we need it. As we are passing different streams, we have a publish subject, and we pass this download start in order to handle this. Then, speaking about the load dynamic module, we simply check if it's installed, because if we don't have it, we're going to have a crash, obviously, because this code should be there. And then we have to load the dynamic feature module. I'm going to explain you now the load dynamic module. We have, for the configuration, something very simple. You cannot imagine how simple this is. This is basically a data class having the module name and the binary name. And with this, we are making sure that we get past the config and we load the concrete dynamic feature we are using. And then we are making sure that we are only loading this once. So we check this in runtime. Talking about the load function, we are checking if the binary name is there, because in this particular case, this is a binary because it's a .so, but it could have no binaries. It could be just a dynamic feature with something else. So if we check this is there, then we load it with the split install helper. And then we pass those streams again by checking that this is completed, or maybe there is an error, so we have to handle it. As I was also telling earlier, we use shield classes and nested shield classes. We have everything embedded here by having the constraints we need. And then we have an error and a subset of different errors that we're going to handle. Load errors, successful error, and something else, so different situations. And obviously the progress. The progress is as simple as having a float number from 0 to 1, as simple as that. It's just a percentage. And then the different situations. The fact that it's completed the load or the installation is completed as well. It can be successful or it can be failed. And then we also use very strongly Dagger. We use Dagger too, and for providing this to the whole app, we actually put this in an application scope, and we take advantage of into map function. That means that for every screen we have, that's why we have the class, we put this particular screen, say, this is the key, so we're going to have this subset of different modules by name, and in this case, you can see we have a list, but this list is only having one module, but it can have 2 or more. So with this, we are making this available for the generic implementation to use it at the time we need it. And then, of course, we use analytics very strongly. We want to make sure that everything is going well, or if it's not going well, then we have to react to the different situations. Then, again, recapping the different UX, we have then this situation, the viewer becoming a guest by tapping this button. So we have the go live together ready. We also have this situation for the broadcaster. And as you can see, we have something that is mentioning there, connecting. I don't know if I am pointing this, maybe not. Well, connecting is having an animation and with those 3 dots. And as soon as we have this loaded, the connecting will disappear, the dots will disappear, and the go live will be highlighted. And then you will be able to click the go live, and then you will be live and ready to have those viewers to join your broadcast. Then, speaking again about analytics, this is the camera scenario for the broadcaster. So we pass those different flags with those different seal classes pointing out to those analytics, and we make sure that the download is finished, and it failed maybe, or maybe it was a success successfully, or maybe we downloaded this, he started, but it isn't finished, or something has happened. So we are making sure that those different situations are properly handled, and reacting this in the future as well. Then let's speak about different results we got. We actually proved that we don't have declining users for the other different platforms. So we didn't affect any other web users, any other iOS users, or any other Android users. So we kept using this and only making this available for the people that really wanted to use it. And then we prevented to have a 20% of the storage in addition to this base storage that you have to use for your app. And actually, we released this in May, as you can see, the 29th of May, when we say that you can go live with guests and you can use it. Actually, we launched it first with the fact that you could maybe do some broadcasting from Periscope. You could see that on Twitter, and you can join as if we were being a guest. So that's the publish we have in the Twitter account. And now, probably the most interesting for me of this presentation is the lessons learned. You will be surprised at different things, or maybe not, you will see. First of all, we had issues with the Android beta features. So as I was pointing out, this was released 2 years ago. And yeah, we have something now is in a good state, but this year we're announcing the conditionals as well. I will speak about the conditionals in a while, no worries. But the thing is, we didn't have a lot of documentation. If you want to read about this, there are collabs, I know. We had those collabs, we used them. We started to develop, and we have different issues, so we have to contact directly their builds because there was not enough documentation for us in order to have the different cases and understand the different situations. So that was one of them. Also, we have Gradle module issues because in our particular situation, we are basically taking this library, which is an AAR. We are extracting from this AAR the .so, and we are passing this to the particular folder that we're going to load this SO, and we're going to make this ready to use. So actually, we are not experts in Gradle scripting, so we need to use some other teams' efforts, like the engineering efficiency at Twitter. They were helping us a lot for this, actually. And also issues with KitKat. Why KitKat? You can think right now. If it's supported from multi-APK, why this is an issue? The thing is, at the time we released, it was in May, but you can imagine we started this earlier. We use AGP 3.4. What happens with 3.4? It's supposed to work, but then we have this ready. We have this ready actually for early bird, which is our internal beta. And then we have some crashes in some KitKat devices. We didn't understand why this happened. And then we post something in the tracker from Google, in the issues tracker. And they answer like, hey, you have this solved. Why don't you use 3.5? And we say like, hey, but 3.5 is beta. We don't want beta right now, because this is a production app, and we want to experiment, but not that farther away. So actually, what we finally did was deprecating KitKat, which is a good thing. But at the time, we were just wondering when we were going to do that. We were preparing the deprecation, but we had to speed it up because we weren't ready to have 3.5, but more ready to be deprecating KitKat. So that was one of the things. And also, cross-functional collaboration. We needed a lot of effort in different teams. The team I was working at that time, Periscope, INSF, and also the other different teams. The Android Foundations team, the camera capture team, because we were using features in the camera. Also the live events team, my current team, because they use broadcast as well. And also the engineering efficiency, because they were helping us a lot with the different scripting and different configurations across the app, with AGP as well. And then also a very interesting one, synchronization issues. This is something that we discovered actually later than we released this dynamic feature. As you can see, I put here a satellite because a satellite is transmitting some data, and then you are gathering this data, and then you are downloading the app, you are installing, and so on and so forth. The thing is, this is the situation, right? You are probably connecting, plugging to the electricity power, and you have the situation that you are having also the Wi-Fi, then probably you have this automatically done. You are downloading stuff, you are having some more in the queue, and this is basically a queue. What does it mean for us? The thing is, if you go to Twitter for Android, you don't have this dynamic feature at this point. Then you go to the broadcaster scenario, or you are a viewer and you want to become one of the guests. You tap this smiley face button. Then what really happens is that when you are clicking this button and you are requesting the installation of the dynamic module, you are going to the queue. So you are not the first one right now. You are in the queue. That means that as soon as the others are finishing, you will be there. The user doesn't know that. We don't have events to handle this. Twitter wasn't providing a specific scenario for telling us this is happening. So this was an issue. We didn't know why it was failing sometimes and why this happened. And this is the reason why. Actually, we communicate this to Google, and they mentioned that they are working on this, but we don't know when it will be fixed. Maybe it's now, but we don't know. So yeah, in the real world, these things happen. We would love to have everything like dancers, synchronizing at the same time, everything perfect, the queue goes all in, all out, all good. But real world, real problems, this is happening. Also, very interestingly, issues when developing. Probably you know this meme, right? When you are working on some particular thing, and then you think, oh, it doesn't work, I don't know why. Or, oh, it works earlier than I expected. I am a genius, why is it working now? So the thing is, it was also an issue because when developing dynamic features, or developing this dynamic feature in particular, you don't have everything you need from the very beginning. You cannot debug this unless you have some base mock to try it. Why? Because if you don't have this ready, you don't have this in the Google Play Store, and the Play Store is the bridge, is the key thing to pass you this thing to be downloaded. How do you want to make it, right? So you need to make something tiny to have this ready, to make this in an app bundle, to have this in the bundle, and upload this to the Google Play Store. And also, you need to make this available in the track, in the Google Developer Console track. So you need a test track for this. So you have two scenarios, actually. You could use bundle tool, which is a tool providing you for having this embedded with this dynamic feature also embedded in the AAB things with the multi-APK ready for you to use and then debugging this. Or you can have a more real scenario, which is basically having this in the test track, where you will have this ready and you will upload that. But unless you don't have everything mostly ready, you cannot test it because you have to have this dynamic feature, you have to load it to the test track, and then you want to download it at some point. But the real situation is you download it when you have it. If you don't have it, you cannot download it. So difficult, tricky. We discovered this along the way as well. Then I'm going to explain you the last steps that we think that can be possible in the future, but we didn't implement it yet. First of all, deferring the installation. You are familiar with this already because I explained you that you could defer it when more convenient for you, when you are maybe doing something else, like navigating to the home timeline. So that's basically it, nothing new. And you can have also conditional installation. That means the conditionals. This is not really on demand, but it's really something that you can have in different situations. Let's say that you have the proper hardware, and you want to have this hardware having this dynamic feature from the very beginning on when updating your app, so you could have this at this time when updating it. Also, probably the most interesting of all of them that I put here is the availability of having whitelist of the different countries you want to have it for free. That means that if you decide, let's say UK can be having this dynamic feature, in the next update, I will have with their app embedding this and having this flagged. Then I will be having this available for me to have and for this to use. You don't need to tap this button and have it there. You will be having this already. You will tap, and you will have this available for you. And then, also based on operating system. You could say, I don't want KitKat because I know bundles are not working, so I can have Marshmallow or Raul or Lollipop, any other, so you can have this already there. I think that's all for me today. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer.